Welcome to At Least You Heard It Here, with your host, former federal prosecutor, Alyse Adamson. Take it away, Alyse.
Men. They make up half the U.S. population, but according to commentators on both sides of the political aisle, Democrats seemingly have lost the ability to speak to them. And welcome to another episode of At Least You Heard It Here. I'm your host, Alyse Adamson, and this is a podcast where we put the topic of the day on trial. And today's topic, the middle-class American man, and whether or not Democrats have lost their way when it comes to messaging to them. This has been an issue that has been in the forefront since the results of the 2024 election, where Donald Trump made inroads with this demographic. And commentators and comedians alike have been having a field day as Democrats scramble to get a unified message ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Just listen to what Bill Maher had to say on a recent episode of his show.
How many know what SAM stands for? It's a new phrase. It stands for Speaking with American Men, SAM. This is the new movement by the Democratic Party. They lost the men vote a lot last time, so they had a meeting up at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco. I'm not making this up, where they served mini lobster rolls and had heirloom tomato carpaccio and seared sea bass in their conclave to decide how to win back the American man.
So is there merit to this criticism? Have Democrats really ignored or, quite frankly, lost touch with the middle class, so much so that they've alienated their men? Or have Democrats just not come up with a message that resonates with all Americans? Well, here to help us break it all down is Chuck Rocha. He's a high-level Democratic strategist, and he's a former advisor to the Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign. So thanks so much for joining, Chuck.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Chuck, I gotta know, because I'm hearing all these narratives in the media, even in social media, that Democrats don't know how to talk to men. And what's interesting to me is men are not a monolith, right? We heard that refrain all through the 2024 election cycle when it came to minorities. Like, blacks are not a monolith, Latinos are not a monolith, right? Well, men are not a monolith. So who are we really talking about? Are we talking about all men? Are we talking about middle-class men? Are we talking about working men? Where is the problem, if a problem exists?
There is a problem, and the problem is it's deeper than men, but men are at the tip of the spear, as they say. And thanks for having me and bringing light to this subject. It's one of those subjects, as an old Mexican redneck from East Texas, that makes my left eye twitch because it pisses me off. Okay. I joined this party, and there's three things that I've never not been. Nobody's ever said I wasn't an alpha male. Nobody's ever said that I was weak, and nobody never said or questioned my manhood. That makes me mad, because when I think about who we are as men, when I think about as fathers, brothers, sons, grandsons, I think about my grandmother, I think about the things that make me who I am. And as you said, we're not a monolith. We come in every shape and size. And I'm not saying you got to be, I said this on social media the other day. I work out every morning. I do that. I've done that for a long.
Do you wear the hat when you work out?
I don't work out with a hat. That would be funny as hell, though. But I wear these headphones and I listen to podcasts. You should be listening to this podcast. And I do all of that to be thinking about, where do this information come from, and why are we not reaching men? Why are we not? And this is what I put on social media, is me actually doing bicep curls. And I literally said, you can be a man's man and be a Democrat and not be a sexist asshole all at the same time. You should give it a whirl. We think to be a man, you got to look at what the right says a man should be, which is being hateful to women, being sexist, being an asshole, being machismo. No. There's all kinds of difference. My granddaddy taught me what a man was, and you show up on time, and you're nice, you chew with your mouth closed, and you show women some respect. But this all leads to where we are today. And I'll kind of wrap all this craziness up and say this piece, is that we've quit talking to men where they're at about things that they give a shit about. In the last two election cycles, we've talked a lot about abortion and a lot about women's rights, as we should. Women lost rights to their own effing bodies. We should be talking about it. But at the same time, we quit talking about how to make sure we had jobs, how to make sure we have health care, how do we make sure that we can pay for child care, how do we make our schools better, how do we make our neighborhoods safer. None of those things were really talked about in the last election. None of those things have been talked about by Democrats in many elections. That's why you've seen this slide to the right by men.
Now, why is that? Why are we not addressing those issues? I mean, obviously, abortion rights very, very key because we've had that overturn of Roe v. Wade. And so that was on a lot of people's mind. That was on the collective conscious. But why do you think Democrats have not prioritized narratives such as the family and the working wage? Because that seems to have been shifted, like you said, to the Republican Party. And there are a lot of Americans who are hurting right now. It seems like a prime issue to prioritize, right?
It's just been a mistake where we've had a lot of well-intentioned, overeducated folks who run our party apparatus and campaigns every day that have chosen to be like, that's the path we're going to be on. And let me be clear, I'm a professional. I run campaigns every day. It wasn't a bad strategy. It delivered Joe Biden. Like, we won elections and won a lot of elections. I'll remind everybody back to the midterms the last time by using the abortion issue, by rallying women who were mad as hell and had every right to be mad as hell. I'm just saying we could have done that and talked to some good old boys at the same time about shit that they care about. Not that they don't care about abortion, but while we were talking about abortion, you had Donald Trump stealing Democratic messages, which was buy American, rebuilding America, stop all these trade deals that are sending our jobs overseas, and kind of man up and own this shit. Like, we can do that and be a champion for women all at the same time.
Well, yeah, let me just ask you about that because, if you watch the Bill Maher clip, he mentions this intentional strategy. They're calling it SAM, to target men in particular. But my question is this really something that Democrats need to just make a focal point of men's issue, or is it a messaging issue overall? Because the things that you are saying, you're saying, well, men need to care about it, but we all need to care about it. So are Democrats making a mistake by sitting down and, Bill Maher makes critique that it's just a bunch of elitists sitting around eating, I think he said little lobster sandwiches, talking about how to talk to men. Should they just be sitting down with people across socioeconomic backgrounds and talking about what resonates to people overall?
You couldn't be more right. It's not a men problem. It's a working families problem. Anybody who has to work for a living, anybody who has to figure out how to make the bills at the end of the month, sure, a lot of that responsibility is on men, but guess what? A lot of that responsibility is on women as well. This is where we miss it. And what you said about the elite class hits at the very heart of what the problem is. Whether you're looking at the problem with men, you're looking at the problem with young people, you're looking at the problem with working women, which we don't talk about enough, which has also slid to the right, is because there's not a lot of us involved in coming up with the strategy of campaigns. I'm one of the only Democratic consultants in America who's never been to college. I was a teenage father, and I've got a criminal record. Any one of those three things would have kept me out of politics, and for God's sakes, I'm all three, and I'm a little mouthy. So that should always keep me out of politics, but there's none of me in that room. I get to sit in some of those rooms, and I'm honored to do that. But we look to a lot of well-educated folks who are getting their strategy from theses and papers and algorithms and models to come up. Somebody said to me last night at a dinner I was at, and they were exactly right. They go, Democrats spend so much money, and we spend a lot of money to talk to people, but we're talking to less and less people every election. And let me explain that to you, because I know you're a smart lawyer. Explain what I'm saying. Is we are the smart, quote unquote, smart party, while they're the ignorant rednecks like I grew up with in East Texas party. Well, that's not really true. What's true is that we overthink everything. We make a Sam's commission, or we go in to figure out just the right people to talk to at the right time, and we think we've got it all figured out because we're smarter, while eliminating people we think won't vote, while Republicans talk to everybody about very simplistic messages. Some would say so simple, they just put it on the front of a red hat.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And also when you say smart versus overthinking, this is also, at least to my mind, problematic messaging, because smart, elitism, these are now words that are being tossed at the Democratic Party. There are a lot of people who are smart, like you, who didn't go to college. Going to college does not make you smart, right? Like, you learn certain skills in college, maybe you focus on a discipline, but there are plenty of intelligent people out there. And I think that's part of the issue, because the way they're being viewed, they feel like they're less than because of this elitist messaging. Do you think that's true? I mean, I've been scrolling TikTok. I admit I'm a little bit addicted to social media. And I saw one man, and he said, I'm a plumber, and he had all this money and was talking about how he invests, kind of like defending his life. And I'm like, why are you defending your life? You're very smart. You got a trade. You're taking care of your family. Looks like you have good retirement. It was it almost seemed like he was defensive where he shouldn't have been defensive. And I think the subtext was because people are making me feel less than because I'm in a trade instead of being a lawyer. Do you think that is true when it comes to narrative?
I don't think it's intentional, but it's true. That's
Okay.
how I define that, because I myself feel that way in my own party. Nobody has made me feel more less than my own party, and I'm a Democrat. No Republican has ever made me feel that way, but there's a lot of folks who've judged me within my own party who don't understand where I come from, who know just because I say that they're overeducated doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't even make their strategy wrong, because what they're doing and what they're thinking of is smart. And by the book, it's exactly the way it should be done, but it don't fit into an electorate if you don't come from that electorate and understand what they're going through. Sure, the economy numbers show that it's going up. Unemployment numbers may be coming down. Think about Joe Biden's years. But when you showed up to talk to somebody, we'd forgotten about the real pain that everybody was going through. And we thought because the stock market was doing so well, everybody felt that way. When I'm in a meeting, and for those of you watching at home on the YouTube, on my hands are real calluses from going back to when I worked in a factory and then I worked on a working farm. I've always had these calluses. Sure, I lift weights now and I keep my calluses up as a point of pride. Again, it could be wrong, but because of my manhood, I love having these and knowing that my hands feel that way. When my wife grabs my hand, she's like, your hands are like leather. You should get some lotion. To me, as a man, that gives me a sense of pride. I want my hands to be like leather. I want to know if somebody ever was to step to her, I'd put my hands all over them and whoop their ass. That's who I am as a man. It doesn't make me right or wrong, but we've lost touch with those kind of folks and real emotions that folks live through in real life. We got to get back to talking to folks about their real life and their real problems, whether you went to college or not. And then bring in the best ideas of the folks who went to college and who have master's degrees or law degrees and folks like me. That's where the real nirvana happens, because there's things that I don't know about that you learn in college, and there's things I learned about on a farm that they have no idea about.
So that sounds like coalition building. Now, I'm not a Democratic strategist. I'm not a strategist at all. I'm a lawyer, but that's what it sounds like to, a lay person. How do you build that, and how do you regain the trust of working and some middle-class Americans? Because you haven't heard that messaging, and Donald Trump and MAGA is selling them dreams that would really be helpful. I mean, who wouldn't want their taxes to come down? Who wouldn't want to be able to afford groceries? Who doesn't want more lucrative industry to come back stateside so they can get these good jobs? What do we do?
I think that's right. And I think I've always admired lawyers, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast today. But
okay.
As a union guy and coming up in a factory and working for a union, back in the day when I was single, I was dating a young woman who told me I would have made a great lawyer because I like to defend people. And I used the contract as my legal binds. Keep in mind, I never went to college, but to protect workers. I see lawyers as somebody who protects the law and protects people. We've forgotten about that as well when I talk about well-intentioned, woke, overeducated folks. Lawyers are folks we should be looking to because the protection of people because of their rights, the rights of the Constitution, like you were talking about this morning on CNN. I was watching you. When you talk about those rights, or you talk about the rights that you have to a free education, the rights you have to have retirement with dignity and have Medicaid and Social Security. These are the kind of things that cuts at people's emotions about this protecting and fighting the man or fighting for your rights. I think this is the piece Democrats, who really haven't been scuffed up in a fight in a long time, have to get back to. Donald Trump and Republicans love to talk about fighting the system, and they're actually part of the system. This is exactly the reason why I created my new Substack show, which is called the Rocha Revolution. Is I wanted to bring voice, and what I'm going to do is what you're talking about. Bring the farmer, bring the lawyer, bring in the fishing guide, bring in the football player, and have some conversations about their lives that don't have to do with politics every day, but what it was like to grow up on a farm. Tomorrow we're recording our first episode with Albert Morales, who has a farm out in Maryland. He grew up in Fort Worth. He's an old buddy of mine. But me and him both wear cowboy hats. We're both Mexicans. He's a devout Christian. I'm a flailing Christian. I try to be Christian as much as I can when I'm not drinking. But then this is a conversation we want to have. We want to make people laugh. We want to make people talk about the farm or talk about religion and talk about shit that folks aren't talking about in the new social media age that me and you are part of. Because I'm just like you. I'm addicted to it as well. And I like scrolling and I like laughing. I have an hour every evening with my wife where I'm like, I'm going to get on my phone because I haven't been on my phone, and I'm going to look at the reels and the TikToks because I want to laugh a little bit and smile before I go to bed. That has nothing to do with politics.
Now I got to ask you, do you send her reels while you're in the same room? Because what my husband and I do, we'll sit there on the couch side by side, but we're watching our own individual reels, and then we'll send each other like the best of. And I want to see if he enjoys them as much as I do. Is that anti-social behavior? No, I don't know. Is that not?
What every couple today, the modern couple does that. I don't know if they do it when they're side by side. She will start laughing in the kitchen, and I'll be like, what? She goes, don't worry, I sent it to you. That's kind of how that goes down for us, so we're the same.
All right, so I'm glad to hear that, because every now and then you start to ask yourself, I'm like,
am I doing talking anymore?
Are we talking anymore?
Right.
No, so it's just something everyone does. So the new show sounds great, Chuck. I mean, this is needed, but again, you have some commentators who are, poking fun at these efforts. I can't remember who said it yesterday. I don't know if it was Bill Maher, but they said, "Oh, they're looking for a Joe Rogan of the left. Why don't they just try to capture Joe Rogan again, because he used to be left, and why has he gone back to the right?" And I'm thinking, so what I'm hearing you describe, it doesn't even sound ultra political. It just sounds like a show where people are talking about things that matter. Is that right?
Yeah, you could not be more right. And if regular Democrats tried to pull off what I'm going to do with the Rocha Revolution, it would look inauthentic because none of them have ever lived my life. I'm the only one at the level I'm at. There's lots of well-meaning Democrats who never went to college who are rednecks like me who've lived through a lot of trauma that I'm going to talk about, whether it was on the farm or wherever it was in the factory. But I'm the only one who's the authentic one, who's the senior. Think about Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, and James Carville had a Mexican redneck cousin named Chuck Rocha, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the things that make people like the Rogan show without the sexism and some of the stupid conspiracy shit. It's going to be Theo Vaughn talking about growing up in a trailer house where everybody was poor, because I grew up in that trailer house, and I've worked on campaigns longer than James Carville and have the same accent. I'll be a little less sexist about it, but it's all those things. I'm going to create that show that the left wants created, but I'm not doing it with the intentionality of thinking I've got to meet some Joe Rogan in a box theory. I'm going to do the Chuck Rocha show that's going to talk about the things that folks aren't talking about, and I think that's the lane that needs to be filled, to know that there's a real place to talk about being a man, being a Democrat, being an alpha, being vulnerable. And being a single father. Like, I raised my boy and had custody of my son since he was 3 months old. And now, to your point earlier, he's a union steam fitter in Pittsburgh, and I got 2 beautiful 8-year-old grandkids. Like, I'm a 56-year-old grandfather who's got a union son who came from my union background that I couldn't be more proud of, but he's much different than the 35-year-olds that I work with in D.C., who all have great college educations and work on the Hill and do all the fancy stuff. Like, this is the two worlds I want to bring together.
No, it sounds great. Now, as an interested party, I have to say, is it men only, or are you going to have women on the show every now and then?
It was so funny that I was reached out to by a woman who used to be a state rep in Minnesota. And I think absolutely I want to have women on. She texted me this morning and she was like, I want to be on this show. She goes, I'm a football referee. I've caught more fish than you have. And I'm now a city councilwoman in this city in Minnesota. And I know her name's Carla. She's great. I'm like, yes, I want people like you on. I want real people with real stories. I think it'll be a little men heavy in the few episodes to kind of get through all the stories I want to tell.
Sure.
But I think that I want to have women on to talk about the interaction between men and women and their stories, right? Like, me and you've gotten to know each other. I know about your story where you grew up in Massachusetts and about the things that you've been through, whether it was January 6th. I think when I'm with you and other people like you, I learn from what you have done and what you were doing in the prosecutor's office, what you were doing on January 6th. Like, I think all of those stories between men and women need to be talked about as much as men and men.
Well, let's talk about life experience as well. I mean, we had a conversation. I've worked. I worked at a grocery store. I worked through college. I worked through law school. You know, these are things.
You were going to be the next head manager at the grocery store. I remember.
I was floor manager, and I was very proud, and I continue to be proud. I just do legal analysis, so I don't have a lot of opportunity to talk about my background. But that's why I started off by asking you, is this really just a gender issue, or is this a messaging issue? Because I think in general, we need to be talking about different people, different life experience. So I can be a lawyer now and be successful, but also be very proud of having worked a variety of jobs and understand also what that meant for me in being able to afford things like rent, food. If you're making $35,000 a year, you're struggling. And if you've never struggled, you don't really understand it. So people sitting in a position of privilege, I don't think they're disconnected because they want to be. They just, if you haven't lived it, you don't know, and you've lived it all.
And I think that when I used to tell people about my story, I told them I thought I was the most unique person in the world involved in politics at any level. And what I've learned my firm now is 16 years old. My firm is one of the largest minority-owned political consulting firms in the country. We have a lot of privilege now. We get to work on things. I got a nice house here in downtown D.C. But I remember when me and you had lunch, it reminded me of all the lunches I've had with folks like you. We think of you as this big-time prosecutor, big lawyer, your own CNN, all the things, right? But when you sit down with people and you get them to tell their stories, man, you learn so much. That's what I want to do on this show. I want folks out there that are listening to the show. That little girl in Massachusetts who thinks that because their mama's black and their daddy's white, or because nobody in their family ever went to college, or because of whatever that circumstance may be above them, that they know that they could be the next you, or they could be the next me. Because me and you did not take the normal route to get to where we are, but me and you are just two of stories I think that are out there that nobody talks about, to where folks and kids today feel like, oh, I can't make it. I can't go to Georgetown, or I can't go to this thing. Look, we way overthink all of this. It's about a working families, to your point. I'm concentrating on these men. But anybody who has to work for a living, these working families who are just figuring out everyday life, this is where the Democrats have to get back to having the conversation with those people who were your parents, my parents, our grandparents. These are the folks. Back then, we knew that the Democrats were the party of the working class. Today, when folks say Republicans are the party of the working class, it makes me sick to my stomach, because I know that they're not, but they keep talking to our working class, making them think that they are because of some social issue, A, B, or C, when they continue to steal money for them, kick them off of Medicaid, or do whatever they're doing to harm them socioeconomically, if I said that right, because they're trying to, dissuade them because of some social issue. When I was young, it was God, gays, guns, or the government. The 4 Gs.
And it's effective messaging, right?
Right. They're like, don't look over here.
So I got to ask you, because, I say on my pod, I put the topic of the day on trial. So we have to ask the hard question, the other side. What, and you touched on this a lot earlier. You say you've used the term alpha. You say you want to do bicep curls. What of the criticism if people say, but that's leaning into the concept of toxic masculinity? And why does there need to be such a strong divide between what a man is and what a woman is? Are these just traditional gender stereotypes, and is it outdated? Is there a problem with leaning into being the stereotypical manly man?
I think you hit it when you say the end of that sentence, which is the stereo. It's a who stereotype. I'm a man's man. There is nothing. You open up manly in the dictionary, you're going to see my face there with 2 pistols or whatever you want to see there. But I'm also probably very feminine to people when it comes to the way that I think about my life and being raised by a single mother and having to take care of my little sister. My mama was just 15 years old when I was born. We were raised together. She was more like my sister because we were fighting the same people and doing the things, like looking back through my traumas. And a lot of what we're going to talk about on the show, on my Substack show, is about those traumas that people live through. And what I lived through, my mama was single most of her life. There was lots of problems in the family, like there are in lots of families, whether it was drug addiction, alcohol, whatever. And it makes you think that you're a manly man. And I always was a manly man, but I didn't realize till looking back that I was that big manly man because I had to be an adult when I was 13. And I had to fight grown men when I was 14 and 15 to protect my mother, protect my house. And all of that trauma made me, quote unquote, a manly man, and these scars on my faces and working in nightclubs and putting my hands on people all the time. Like that trauma in society, back to what people think is a manly man. But for me, it was survival. And I think to a lot of people it was. When you opened up this show and you said being a man is not a monolith, that's exactly right. Just like being a woman is not. Like you can't judge all women the same or men the same. I'm saying that the Democrats, and this is my job, need to get back to talking to working families and showing up and talking to men about their families, about their kids, about their religion, about all the shit that we're scared to talk about men to, and say, look, we're in this fight together and we have a common enemy, and he's in the White House and that party who thinks you think is with you, but are not with you. They're telling you what you think you want to hear while they're stealing out of your wallet all at the same time.
Well, Chuck, that's a wonderful closing argument. That's also something we like to do on the pod. That's perfectly said. So why don't you go ahead and plug when viewers can catch this show on Substack? Are you going to be doing it daily, weekly? I know I'll be tuning in.
Thank you so much. We're going to start once a week, and I want to grow it to 2 or 3 times a week. But in the beginning, we're going to do it every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. You can follow Chuck Rocha, that's Rocha, on Substack. The Substack show will go at 3 o'clock on Wednesday every week. I'm going to appear on some throughout with some other people like my buddy Jim Acosta and some other folks who want me to be on their show to talk about it. But please subscribe, join the conversation, follow me on social media. I'm always giving people hell on the X, and Instagram is not for my political views. It's mainly workout videos and my grandkids, but you're welcome to be there as well. But that's the big show that we're going to be doing, is the Substack show at 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. And I really appreciate you letting me be on your show today.
Of course. No, I really appreciate this conversation. I'm not in the political world, so we need experts like yourself to explain what went wrong and what the Democrats will likely have to do if they have a prayer of chance of picking up seats in 2026. And I'll also be looking for my booking email to join your show after it's got off the ground.
I'll have you on my final argument.
Yeah, exactly. See how I just invite myself on? You gotta shoot your shot.
I like it.
And thank you. And for everyone listening or viewing today, if you like what you heard, go ahead, click subscribe, and remember to tell folks, at least you heard it here.